Hi guys, I'm Ruth Royall and this is how we wrote Paper Birds.
Look back to front.
The knobs are too tiny.
That is
It's
very
not.
true, actually. I would agree.
I absolutely loved writing on this track. When Ekko and Sidetrack got in touch with me and said that they wanted to do a collaboration, I was like, yes! I loved Ekko and Sidetrack's music before, so it was really great when they reached out and wanted to work with me. So this is how we wrote Paper Birds. So I had a little bit of an idea for this track anyway, because I'd had a listen to it before. And I went for a run this morning and I was going down by the water on the Bristol Harbour side and there were loads of birds around and it's quite beautiful. Just for this one I felt like I just wanted to play with the words paper bird. So that's what I'm gonna start myself off with. I may not end up with that, but that's what I'm gonna start with. Paper birds, we've been wishing on the paper bird. So here it says, an ancient Japanese legend promises that if anyone folds 1,000 paper cranes, they will be granted a wish by the gods. I like that. Okay, so something like wishing, paper birds, something cool. There's something cool in there, I think. Wishing on the paper bird. Oh, could you see? I never quite believed the way you love me. Okay, so I've got to a point where I feel like I've got a theme and I've got a bit of a hook going. So I'm gonna stick on my headphones and record a proper take now, and just kind of let it all come together a little bit. Could it be another solid obstacle you see? I never quite believed the way you loved me, but I'm holding on. Though our love was paper thin, I can make birds with paper wings. Okay, so I've got to a point where I'm pretty happy with how the top line is sounding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a mix and just kind of make it sound nice and nice to listen to, all that kind of stuff, and then I'm going to send it over to Ekko and Sidetrack and see what they think.
Yeah.
I love what you said. I got really into it. I was just, Sam is now really fed up with it because I keep playing it. I'm like, let's listen to Paper Birds again.
I feel very similar. I've listened to Paper Birds going for walks around sunset.
That kind of sense of dusk dawn, that there's a particular feeling around that time of day,
Yeah.
isn't there? That I
It's
had in my
magical.
head the whole time of writing the lyrics, like a real kind of visual. So it's quite interesting that it's making you want to listen to it around then.
It's almost like the twilight of a relationship, and then you're like, it's going into the darkness or into the light. So maybe it is more like the pre-dawn kind of feeling. I've shown people as well. I've literally just sent them the link and I was like, listen to this. And every person has had a reaction that's been emotional and visceral. So it's connecting, and I hope it continues to connect. We started this song in January last year. And it hasn't changed that much, Jonathan, based on like the original idea. Like the bones of the idea were there after 10 hours of working on the song.
Yeah,
But
and it stayed in that state basically for a year.
When you sent the vocal, Ruth, it was just like the perfect timing to hear something like that for me, emotionally, but also like I sent Jonathan a text that said, have you checked out that vocal that, whoever Ruth Royall is just emailed us a vocal.
Who's that chick?
Yeah, who's that chick? And I listened to it the whole way through, being like, wow, someone has come along and captured the vibe of the tune and like amplified it. Like, you haven't just sung words over the song that are in key and sound nice. You've added an extra level of emotion to it. And somehow that emotion was what we tried to inject in it in the first place.
Mm.
I remember you saying the first time we talked about it that you'd had the image of like soaring, and that was always the thing that you were trying to create in the song, and that was literally the visual that I had with the birds and the soaring, and like it's just been so strange how in sync it's been, which I guess comes from the music, like that was telling a story to me straight away. And like there is that kind of sadness to it, but it's also that finding your own light and your own strength, and realizing you can fly, you can become whatever it is you want to become. And it's just amazing, isn't it, how music can communicate that, because we didn't talk about that before. You just sent me the track.
No, not at all.
Jeff is probably more of the has more of an engineering ear than me. So he's usually the one that finishes the songs, and I offer feedback on what he does. So this song had been worked on by both of us, me in London, Jeff in Perth, pre-vocal. And then once we got the vocal from you, it basically 100% went to Jeff, because the idea was to plonk the vocal in, comp it, process it, and then we'd have the finished tune. So in this process, what I think happens to anyone working on something by themselves is they get too much in the into the process. Like a great thing of a partnership is what Jeff and I have is when I go too deep into something or just go into like a ridiculous zone, Jeff is the one to pull me out. And when Jeff goes into a ridiculous zone, I'm the one to pull him out. So what happened, and part of the reason why we had those kind of back and forths on Instagram, is that Jeff worked very, very hard and did amazing work, but he pushed the song sonically too hard to a point. And that's what caused, I think it was like a Wednesday night, and you worked really, really hard on it. And he sent me a version, was like, I think this is done. I'm really happy with it. And I listened to it, and I
also posted on Instagram, like, I think this is really close to being done.
And you're very happy with it, and you're like, I've been in here for 10 hours, and I'm
it was like I sent it to Jono for some feedback.
But feedback in terms of like,
is it done? Approval.
Is it? Yeah.
The other day, you remember, we had to go backwards to go forwards. Well, we've had to kind of go back and forth as we've progressed as well, like grabbing drums from here that we liked and adding to this. And now I've started doing all the vocal pulling together. So this is an ongoing saga. In other news, the tune we've been working on backwards and forwards and all sorts of things is finally coming together.
Yes.
I'm now just getting a chance to sit down and go over Jonathan's feedback properly. I read it in my bed, which is a big no-no, because it means that like I'm reading the feedback in a place that I'm powerless to do anything about it. So
I'm honestly surprised that Jeff read that feedback when he was in bed, because reading it when you are unable to do anything about it right then and there would have frustrated me.
But in the end, no one's right or wrong. We've got to serve the song. Having talked to Jonathan now and gone back over some of the project, stuff just has been overworked.
It's really beneficial to have two sets of ears when it comes to especially finalizing track.
But it just goes to show that when you're working really fucking hard on something, you can get your head too far into it and you think what the final version of what you have is the best. But really, you have to look at things objectively, and sometimes you need someone else's opinion to give you that objective feedback. Lessons.
You have to serve the song, and like countless times on this, like we would come back to being like, we're not serving the song. What do we want the song to be? And we've pushed it over, or we're not pushing it enough. Like, you know, it's like, it sounds a bit, you know, and no amount of work you've done on something should ever justify the merit of it.
Exceeded our expectations of what we initially wanted, but it's exactly like, it's what we dreamed that it would kind of sound like.
So there you have it. That's how we made Paper Birds. I hope you guys found that interesting, and it's given you a little bit of an insight into our writing process and also how we collaborated on the track. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we have enjoyed making it.
I'll be wishing